certainly understand the logic of, well, the Cowboys haven't won the Super Bowl in 27 years, so this is going to be no different. Like, I get that. And if that is your contention, fair enough. I hope we can continue to try to have a conversation nonetheless. But there are so many numbers that have come out early in this Cowboys defensive season that it is freaking wild. So right now, there's only 2 teams in the NFL that have still yet to give up 20 points. One of them is the Cowboys, and the other one is the 49ers. Clearly, that backfired on me for a variety of reasons last night, but
take that L.
It is the Cowboys and the 49ers. And then you heard Steven say yesterday how long it had been since they had not given up 20 points through their first 4 games. 1973. They've only given up
50-year window.
Yes, exactly. They've only given up 4 touchdowns in their first 4 games. That joins the 1970 and 1972 Cowboys as the only 3 times the franchise has done that in history. And last year, Mike, you and I got in an argument because I was like, I just want the defense to be average, and you like jokingly referenced doomsday. That's a high bar, and you have to get through the season to like even be in that conversation. But when you say 1970, 1972, 1973. Interestingly enough, we skipped the season they won the actual Super Bowl. But all of the adjacent seasons, you're talking about at least one iteration of what some people call the doomsday defense. So my question is, at a time when this offense is still not great by any means, it wasn't great in the first game, it hasn't been great with Cooper Rush. How far can this defense take this team?
I think
all the way.
I would love for that to be the case.
Mike, do you remember the hope and feeling we had when Dez caught it?
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about that moment.
For about 30 seconds.
No, I'm not just talking about that moment, because I think you and I did 2 games that year.
Yeah, the Detroit game, the refs actually won that game for us.
Yeah, well, there was another call, too, that wasn't. So it evens out. But that being said, that year was the Tony Romo said, okay, I'm going to stick within the offense, the freedom of the offense, right? I love what Reggie said earlier, the freedom of structure. That's exactly what Tony Romo did. He said, I'm gonna do what we're supposed to do to win. It doesn't have to be me being a hero to win it. And their defense was good enough to make some really good plays. And I thought that's why one of the reasons I felt like their defense made exceptional plays late that kept them in the game. And Tony Romo was so good late in the season.
Yep.
Because early in the game he wasn't
phenomenal.
He wasn't wearing himself out, but he was good at late game situations, very similar to the way Eli Manning was during his Super Bowl runs. You're like, well, Eli Manning sucks. That's fine. Go watch how he was like zombie-like. Every time you thought you killed him and they were done, he would come back and win the game, and you'd be like, why does this keep happening? And that's what the Romo group, and was it 14 or 16? Is that 14? That in the Dez caught it season.
Yes, 14.
That's what they were like that
was
year.
The Dak year then.
And that's what they were that year. And here's what I'm hoping, Kevin. I think this defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl. I really do. The offense needs to know what they can and cannot do. Okay. And I think they know they cannot do some things with Cooper Rush. I'm afraid that when Dak gets back, they're going to go, oh, we can do all these things. I would like it to be a good amalgamation of what they can and cannot do with Cooper and what they think they can do with Dak Prescott. So that whenever they get on the field, it's very similar to the 14 season where you're capable of winning. Now, the question is, for me, can their offense blow people out? And it showed it could last year.
Are you inclined to think probably not so far this year?
I mean, with the first run with Dak, it didn't look that way. I think that we saw last year they were really good. Their offense could blow bad teams out of the water, and they could stay close against good teams. And I need them to be able to be better than close against good teams offensively. Right. But I think their defense can give them that kind of leverage. Again, Jerry Jones said it this morning. You can count on them. And they give the opportunities for your offense to do a lot of different things because hey, I can make a stop here.
And I saw another stat from the Cowboys PR department, which is super helpful, is this is the most sacks that the Cowboys have had through 4 games since 1994. Again, do I think it's weird that it's in the Super Bowl window, but not an actual Super Bowl winning year, just like 70, 71, or excuse me, 70, 72, and 73? Yes, I do. But the point was, if you go back to 70, 72, 73, you go back to 1994, these were damn good football teams. And so I think, to your point, that is the really encouraging part for me, is they're putting up numbers. Again, it's only 4 games, but we only have 4 games to judge off of, that your defense has been operating at least in the franchise perspective, historical run.
I can't believe, going back to 2 years ago, that it's become arguably the best defense in the NFL.
And they might have been the worst.
Arguably the worst, arguably the best in a 1.5 year period approximately, because, it just goes to show. I know Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones would never say it, but how pathetic some coaches can be. And who was it? Jim Bob Cooter. Who was our guy that was just pathetic at defense? Mike Nolan. Whatever his name was. Fart knocker schmagee, who should never have a job in the NFL again. Like, that guy's pathetic, proven pathetic, should be written down by all 32 general managers. Never hire Mike Nolan
as your DC.
And just have that as your screensaver, so you always remember how pathetic he was at coaching. Because you take the same defense, add I'm just thinking here. You add Parsons. I know that. Was there anybody else added to that defense besides Micah Parsons?
Well, Diggs grew.
Right, but he was on. I get it, and he got better. Guys can get better. But and guys did, but
the safety positions, I think they added better.
That's right.
And I do think this year specifically, they finally said our defensive tackles are good, and they committed there.
And finally, you had to quietly go to Jerry Jones over a 2-3 week period and go, your boy Jalen Smith is pathetic at football, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? He's the greatest ever to exist on a football field.
Yeah, somebody had to tell him.
And so finally they let that go. But I mean, literally, you just took a lot of the same guys, added Micah Parsons, who's arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. And go,
by the way, look at the odds for that. He is running away with it. But you're right. Because, and I think, Corey, you have a great point as well. How many people do you think have taken a step forward with Quinn and with Parsons on the defense? Take Donovan Wilson. Obviously, you're talking about Trayvon Diggs. I mean, hell.
Didn't Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis get better under?
Yes. Yeah. Now, Anthony Brown, we still have to have that conversation another point. He struggled to start this season. But last year, you're absolutely right. And I know he just got here, but don't you feel better about Dante Fowler? Don't you feel good about DeMarcus Lawrence? And I know Steven said it's as simple as him just being healthy again, and maybe that is the case.
The type of player that they wanted and what they got, length and speed, they said that's what we got to go get, because that's something I can't teach.
So they messed up. I believe they messed up in 2nd and 3rd round picks with Joseph and Wright.
You know what? Steven said something yesterday that I was thinking about, that he goes, but man, how important was he on special teams? And I was like, rock on, and I'm proud of him for that. But that's not what you're looking for from your 2nd round pick. You're like, hey, he's going to be a hell of a special teamer.
Especially when you take a dude who has off-field issues and then he comes to town and his friends murder somebody.
Yes.
Allegedly. That makes it really tough to be like, that was a low risk player. No,
I'm with you there.
You were taking a high risk, and so far it has been a bust. But that being said, Bland, what a great pick. Sam Williams, I will say this. I know it's early and he's limited in snaps because of all the guys we've named, Armstrong and Fowler and all these guys that are having good seasons. But I'm telling you, Sam Williams to me is showing flashes of greatness. Not Micah Parsons, but gonna be a really good contributor in this league.
Okay, now the one thing left that we do need to talk about, though, because I saw this yesterday, and this is the Achilles heel, clearly, of the defense. As of right now, the Cowboys defense has given it the most explosive running plays and the highest run percentage this season. Is that a matter of, we talked about in the crosstalk yesterday, getting the corners potentially more involved or helping seal off the outsides? Or do you think that's a product of being so hyper aggressive on the pass rush?
I think both of those things. I think that's kind of what Broadus was getting at yesterday too. If you really watch the big plays, a lot of times it is an aggressive edge who you can either say, hey, go get the sack, or you can kill DeMarcus Lawrence for playing run defense for all this time. That's what you're trying to decide is, hey, I've been asking you to get sacks. why are you giving up the run too?
Yeah.
Well, there are techniques to be able to do both at the same time, but a lot of these guys are just pinning their ears back and going. So I think maybe they're just like, that's fine. Now, if it turns into too many points, it's a big factor. But I think they might just say, we'll give up some yards here. When they run at Diggs, he's shown some moments where he's very willing to go in there, and some moments where he's like,
not so much.
I will take this blocker with me and see if I can kind of skirt them out of bounds here. And it doesn't always work that way. So I think it's a little combination of both.